Welcome to Lions, Tigers, and Bears.
In this video, I dissected the first Far Cry 6 trailer into cinematic tricks. A 5-second cutscene of 4 shots of riots and posters in Spanish quickly reveals the setting. The action takes place somewhere in a Latin American country where riots, revolution, and the rule of dictators are 4 common things. And in these 4 seconds, several tricks can already be noted that visually comment on events. For example, the foreground is cropped so that the heads of the demonstrators are cut off and only show their bellicose false, as if a little depersonalizing their demonstrators. The fall of the statue of the dictator was filmed with a slight swaying of the supposedly reportage camera in the hands of a journalist. In the next shot, the cameraman shows a half-naked rebel framed by police shields. Firstly, this helps the viewer to quickly focus on his figure, and secondly, it is a simple and understandable image of confrontation. In order to save time and make it more tenacious, the editing firstly applied techniques everywhere. But here, cut out at the moment of throwing the hammer, reinforce it with drum strikes. The next technique is matching by matching. When the object of 2 frames coincides in composition and shape, with the help of such a condition, the editor contrasts the chaos on the streets and the serene life within the walls of the residence of the dictator Anton Castillo. There is a lot of light in the room. The decor consists of even figures and lines, as if confirming this order. While the people are burning cars, the son of El President knows about them only from the models. At the same time, the sound of disturbances in the world of the game, that is, diegetic, abruptly changes to the sound of the track that the boy listens to with headphones, not diegetic. This technique informs us that we will be looking at the scene from the point of view of the dictator's son, Diego. The emergence of a dictator is furnished with a used dramatic technique often used in marketing. The key actor is not shown immediately, but with Far Cry 6, this technique did not work as the poster with Giancarlo Esposito a few days before the official announcement. Nevertheless, in this frame, they used another simple trick. Unlike Diego, the dictator remains in the shadows for the entire scene because he is still a villain. The camera movement before the boy turned into his father is very smooth. Typically, this panning and sagging is removed from the rails, but we are watching the scene from the perspective of a boy, so the camera is synchronized with Diego's sensations. In Shot's father, the camera goes into handheld shooting mode, that is, it shakes a little. This is the easiest way to show excitement or fear of the father, but they are afraid of something. The dad puts a grenade in the hands of his son. While this dialogue is filmed so that the boys suppress subordinate position, a close-up of the hands dominated by Castillo's hands, a close-up of Diego's face, a super close-up of half of the dictator's face that allows you to see the face. And it's cool that in this sequence, the editor carefully leads from plan to plan. The glues correspond to the direction of the gaze. If Diego looks at the grenade, then the plan of the grenade. If he looks at his father, then the plan with his father. Then the editor makes an interruption to the extra close-up with the boy in order to play with the audience's expectations for a moment. It's only a split second, but you have to wonder if Castillo will pull the check or not. In addition, to show the range of the motion during pulling, a wider frame is needed, but gluing a close-up of a grenade with the first medium shot without interruption would be a mistake of the editor. Here's what it would look like.
And of course, the pin.
What are you doing?
The explosion did not happen, so the close-ups are changed to the middle ground, which adds visual variety and discharges the action a little. There is more air in the frame. At the same time, Diego begins to trust his father, who did not allow the grenade to be dropped, and the camera simultaneously calms down with him. After a figurative boom, the camera staggers again in the foreground, and then finally stands on stable rails. Diego and Castillo walk down the hallway, and simple visual rhymes and metaphors begin. The sculpture of the president, who supposedly points to the future or gives freedom, is combined with a grenade in the hands of a boy. At the same time, the dictator says that he will be his heir. The path through the corridor is lined with a light pattern through blinds that resemble a lattice or wire fence, and the humble soldier, fully wrapped in uniform, rhymes with fascist posters. By the way, in the place of the editor, I would have glued a frame in which Castillo is in the form of a demon with Diego's gaze, to make a symbolic 8, as if if, since working with simple images, why not?
Noise. Indecision.
Then again, the comparison of stability with the chaos of riots. A careful step up the stairs, lined with geometric patterns, against a fight between a policeman and a rebel. This moment of defiance is glued to the frame of the soldiers saluting. In this shot, Diego is marked with a bright flash from the hothouse world of the mansion to the world of street riots and, which is remarkable, exactly in the middle of the video in terms of timing. And by the way, it's nice that here the direction of Diego's gaze and the phase of movement coincides with the direction and phase of the fall, so the frames are better combined. Next, shots of the contrast of the fall of the statue of the dictator with a handheld camera begin, but neat new buildings, a skyscraper, and a church are visible in the general plan. The frame was shot off the rails. This is how the dictator Castillo usually views the city, so that you don't forget about the grenade. It is usually shown again, and they also emphasize when the guy stumbles over the cord. This is Hitchcock's MacGuffin suitcase. Then we are pompously brought to the portrait of Castillo's character. First, they shoot a wide angle from the bottom, which makes it higher, then a large one with a cigarette on fire, and finally panning from the bottom up. It is now clear that the dictator is played by Giancarlo Esposito. He does not look like a self-confident lump, but rather a very tired person.
They will answer you with screams.
Further, after Castillo's words, they give a perspective from the position of a demonstrator. The dictator looks small and ridiculous, as if he has short, ugly legs. However, here they immediately show that he is not afraid to be in the balance of death. Even in a critical situation, he remains calm, and in order to give a sense of texture, we added pebbles that fall off the cornice. But pebbles also show the logic of space in the scene. Since we will look down further, a shot from the perspective of a god, we can appreciate the battlefield, which is actually well defended. Moreover, the situation is under control to an extent that the policemen manage to bring the prisoners to their knees and no one is especially guarding them. Such a shot in the editing can serve as a kind of impartial commentary on the situation. It was filmed with a great depth of field, that is, everything is in focus, because the operator is not trying to focus on something in particular. Then, everything again returns to Diego's point through one unstable frame with a reminder of a grenade. And in the next shot, Castillo communicates his point of view on the protest, gains the boy's trust, as a result of which the image is completely stabilized. Castillo continues to convince Diego, and the camera gradually swoops in on him. And in order to maintain this feeling of internal struggle, in words, the monster shows a protester with a Molotov cocktail and the very burning car that the guy collected in a comfortable residence. He also accepted the point of view of his father, but before that, they show the gaze of a detained at gunpoint. In this gluing, the space below and above is connected, so it turns out something like a silent dialogue between the boy and the protester. In general, what is cool about editing is if you stretch the time, use the rhythm correctly, you can show a moment of reflection. This whole sequence of fights in slow-mo and burning streets takes a split second and most likely happens simultaneously, and the dialogue without interruptions would take 20 seconds, but it turned out more than 40 seconds. Such play over time during editing firstly creates tension because the grenade can explode at any moment. Secondly, we were shown different points of view on the conflict. Thirdly, they declared the ideology of the antagonist and drew the malleable character of the boy from the palace. In short, if you remember the popular phrase of Hitchcock, movies are like life with the boring parts cut out, but this is not always the case. On the contrary, some moments need to be inflated, and in the finale, we are brought to the opening ending of the scene, when the operator shifts the focus from the faces of the characters to the solution of the protagonist, which he has in his hands. In general, the focus throughout the video works for the concept. The operator avoids small details almost all the time. He uses a low depth of field to accentuate faces or objects, and also takes close-ups. First, such techniques are needed to emphasize the emotional moment. After all, we look at everything through the eyes of the son of a dictator, who is afraid and emotionally cut off from the environment, alienated. Secondly, Ubisoft has a different approach to promotion through cinematics. For example, Kojima or CD Projekt Red stuff trailers with details so that the users increase the hype on the game while looking for a reference. And Ubisoft is trying to take charismatic characters and immediately understandable conflict in the pre-release videos. Although, with Far Cry 5, it turned out somehow awkward when they showed several juicy videos, and as a result, Charismatic appeared in the game for about 15 minutes. Everything that I described here is very pathetic, and it's definitely not worth making long films from a set of such techniques. This will tire the viewer. But this is a good example of a dramatic scene, which could show one of the key moments of a hypothetical full-length film. And in the case of Far Cry 6, this is a good example of exposure, but not too deep, but enough to ask questions and keep answers to them until the next videos or the release of the game. Writing in the comments if you consider such promo videos to be a separate work and suggest the best cinematics from the games in your opinion.